Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Pilot Principle, the podcast where we take a look at just the first episode of a series, the pilot, and then use it to decide if we should watch the entire series, or at least the second episode. So on this episode of The Pilot Principle, we will be looking at episode 1 of BBC's new mystery thriller series, as if they do anything else, Nightsleeper. Starting as per with the series synopsis, which tells us that time is running out. When hackers send a train hurtling towards death and destruction, can two strangers stop it before it meets its final destination? Adrenaline-filled thriller. I liked that little final destination play on words thing there. Let's get into the credits for Nightsleeper. So you will not be surprised whatsoever to learn that Nightsleeper does not have a pilot title. It's just called episode 1, which is just an absolute snooze fest. The synopsis for episode 1 tells us that this is a real-time thriller about the hacking of a sleeper train travelling from Glasgow to London. You know what? It just does what it says on the tin, doesn't it? This is, in fact, what the pilot episode is about. So yeah, okay, nothing really to fault there. The pilot has an episode length of 58 minutes and the series length is a classic BBC 6 episodes. I know I have already said these 3 letters about 100 times, but you can watch Nightsleeper on BBC One, or you can watch all episodes on BBC iPlayer. Nick Leather is cited as the pilot writer and he is also the series creator. Leather has written episodes of Hollyoaks, The Worst Witch and The Dumping Ground, and he also created and wrote Rocket's Island and The Control Room in 2022, which was his last TV credit. The pilot episode, episode 1, was directed by Jamie Magnus Stone, who sounds really familiar, but I can't quite place the name, but Magnus Stone? Magnus Stone directed episodes of Doctor Who, specifically in Series 12, which is Jodie Whittaker's 13th Doctor era. He's also directed The Village, Tripped, and £10 Pom-Poms. And he is directing an upcoming series called Non-Stop, which feels oddly similar to Nightsleeper based on the title alone. In terms of cast, Nightsleeper stars Joe Cole, who plays Joe, easy to remember. Cole is likely familiar to many people from his role on the show Peaky Blinders. And if you didn't know, there is a character on the Peaky Blinders called Michael Gray, who plays Joe Cole's character's cousin, who is actually Joe Cole's brother in real life, Finn Cole. There you go. Learn something new every week. Cole has also starred in Pure, A Small Light, and Gangs of London, which is the second thing that I think he's most popular from. And I really enjoyed Gangs of London. Well, I enjoyed the first 2 series. Cole also has a lot of upcoming projects slated, which is great. I don't really know how I feel about him as an actor, though I am glad that he got out of Peaky Blinders as much as I loved his character. The next person on the principal cast list is Alexandra Roach, who plays a character called Abby. I didn't actually think I had come across Roach as an actress before. However, her filmography does say that she did star in Bodies, or was it called Bodies? No, I'm confusing it with the called Bodies. But there is a series called Bodies, which came out on Netflix last year, which I gave up on after 2 episodes, but Roach starred in that. She has also starred in The Witch Farm, The Light in the Hall, and Viewpoint, and Killing Eve. And she did star in the ITV/ITVX series Sanditon, playing Diana Parker. And I did actually have to Google this to double check what she looked like. And personally, she's unrecognisable, so it's no wonder I didn't think I knew who she was. Roach will also be leading a TV miniseries called Lazarus that is slated for later on this year. I do not have any other information about the show Lazarus, but it is giving raised from the dead energy, so I will be keeping an eye out. The pilot also stars Katie Leung, who I know from her time starring in the series Annika, which stars Nicola Walker, who I love, and she played Cho Chang in Harry Potter and the Order of Phoenix and beyond. Ruth Madeley also stars, and I love when she pops up in anything. I originally know her from Years and Years, which was the Russell T Davies series that came out a few years ago, and I just thought it was really impactful. So if you haven't watched Years and Years, go and see if it's still available on BBC iPlayer and just binge it. Madeley has also starred in Doctor Who really recently. We also have Sharon Rooney, who looked familiar to me but I couldn't quite place, and then the internet told me that she starred in My Mad Fat Diary, which I didn't watch, but I remember there being copious adverts about. And then just running through the last couple of people, we have Parth Takira, Lois Chimimba and Sharon Small also popping up in the pilot episode of Nightsleeper. Now, I know I mentioned that you can catch Nightsleeper episodically on BBC One, or you can watch it on BBC iPlayer, but my question is, which one would you rather do? Which one do you do? I know so many people have streaming services, so we've fallen into the habit of watching things in one go or binging them at our convenience. But is anybody still sitting down and watching weekly episodes? I hope they are, because there's a nice sense of community with being able to watch one episode at a time and having people to talk about it one episode at a time, instead of worrying that, oh, I've only seen 4 episodes or I've watched all 8, don't spoil it, and then basically nobody talks about anything they watch anymore, which is quite sad. But on to happier things. In terms of what made me want to watch Nightsleeper, because this episode wasn't slated at all for what I thought I would be watching and reviewing in the month of September. But do you know what? Those words, those 3 little words, real-time drama. That's what basically hook, line and sinkered me into watching Nightsleeper. Now, I don't really know, or I didn't really know what this meant. However, after watching the pilot episode, I could see that, okay, so the running time is 58 minutes. So everything that we see on screen takes place within 58 minutes. Now, I don't know if they filmed everything within 58 minutes, because that sounds absolutely absurd and unnecessary, because it's not a play or live. It's just filmed in real time. And I personally like it when creators try to be inventive, because we spend so long talking about how we want different things, and when we get different things we don't watch it, so they stop making the different things, and then the cycle repeats itself. So yes, real-time drama is the reason to at least check out the pilot, especially if you like when dramas try to change things up. If you have made it this far and you are enjoying yourself, or you know somebody who would enjoy themselves by listening to the pilot principle, then do me a favor and hit follow and hit share, and share this voice with whoever that person is that you know has so many things on their watch list and never gets around to watching any of them. Allow me to help them. Allow me to help them know which series to watch by judging the series by its pilot. Okay, let's get into those first 10 minutes of episode 1 of Nightsleeper. Why the first 10 minutes, you wonder every week? Well, because the first 10 minutes of a pilot episode should be setting the scene for us to know how the rest of the episode / the series will proceed. So it gives us an idea of character, tone, theme, pace, what the current state of the world is, and what happens to jolt things out of the everyday. That is what the first 10 minutes is supposed to be, and the first 10 minutes of episode 1 of Nightsleeper goes like this. So we begin with a metronomic piano key playing as we watch our main character, Joe, walk through Glasgow station and give an odd look to a few police officers milling around. A large clock reads 11:43 p.m. and the train board tells us that the train to London Euston is at 11:45. And I just want to quickly pause here to say that Joe is cutting it so close, and I would literally be in panicked sweats. The train doors close 30 seconds before takeoff. We all know this, right? 30 seconds. He basically has 90 seconds to get to his train, and he's just walking like he's got all the time in the world. Oh no, I was stressed. I was stressed for him. Okay, right, back to the program. On screen, we are given the following information. Glasgow, distance to London, 410 miles, overnight journey, 316 minutes. Then, the metronomic piano player stops to send a text reading, "Ready?" ? Then we are on the train and watch as the conductor collects a radio from the control room, and we see a few passengers getting onto the train, and the camera stops at a suspiciously dressed man. I'm talking dark jacket, low cap, general up to no good apparel. He is the receiver of the "Ready?" text and responds, "Ready, full stop." Riveting stuff, I know. This man then snatches a woman's purse and her pram rolls away and is stopped by Joe, who then, along with a bunch of people, start chasing the bag snatcher through and around the train. Eventually, the bag snatcher drops the bag and evades capture, and Joe reveals himself not to be a good Samaritan, but a police officer. Joe gets upgraded from economy to club for his good deeds, and the train leaves the platform 8 minutes behind schedule. In Glasgow, city centre, I presume, the woman with the pram dumps her retrieved bag and her pram, which is babyless, and gets into a car with the piano player from the start and the purse snatcher. The train manager heads back to his little office and finds what looks like a bomb attached to wires under the floor panel. He tries to call the driver, but it doesn't go through, so he hits the emergency stop button again and again and again, but it is unresponsive. And the opening credits begin to play a bang on the 10-minute mark. I kind of feel like doing Elliot's I Told You So dance from Scrubs, but I'm not going to do that for you. I'm humble, and I just think that this is a great early reminder in series 2 that the 10-minute rule is still a thing, and I kind of know what I'm talking about. Right, moving swiftly on to look at what we thought about that as an intro. And firstly, it's important to say that I loved how the piano key sort of playing in the background first seemed to be insignificant, but it ended up circling back round to show that the character playing the metronomic key tone board thingy was in fact relevant. So yeah, really enjoyed that. I also really enjoyed the way that after Joe chased the bag snatcher through and around the train, he revealed himself to be a police officer. It just worked really well. And by the way, I am calling him Joe because I know his name is Joe, but in those first 10 minutes, we actually don't know his name. So yes, this is going to sound really on the nose, but the introduction was very introductory. We get flashes of the characters who will be relevant later on in the pilot / in the series. And by flashes, I don't mean that they just like throw their faces up on screen, like when Doctor Who has one of those moments where they like point at their face and go 9, and then we get all the other, I don't know, I'm just Doctor Who all over the place. What I mean by the flashes of characters who are going to be relevant as the camera is following Joe through the train station as we're boarding the train, we just see characters, getting ready to go on trains, with their family, with their luggage, looking around, checking the time, opening their laptops and sending emails. But these people that we see aren't just background characters. They are going to be relevant later on in the episode. Okay, yeah, that was a little bit more succinctly said, wasn't it? And towards the end of the 10-minute mark, we literally cycle through our 10 possible main characters on the train when it takes off. Well, 9 plus 1 for Joe. And this basically reaffirms that the characters the camera settled on before the train took off are in fact going to be relevant. Overall, it's a great opening. I'm already wondering what the hell is going on, how all of the elements connect. They're talking about the fake purse snatching crew and what's happening on the train. What kind of danger are they all in? And I am all too aware of the fact that there is a ticking clock. And that ticking clock is how long it's going to take to get from Glasgow to London. It has to be said that after watching the first 10 minutes, especially with the on-screen information that gave us the location, the length of time to destination, etc., Nightsleeper is already heavily reminding me of ITV's Red Eye that came out earlier this year with Richard Armitage and Jing Lucy. And I'm not going to lie, I bet the BBC were pissed. I bet they were pissed that they missed their window to do a, locked room, times running out on some sort of transportation mode program. If you haven't seen Red Eye, I have done a pilot review on it, so just scroll on back a couple of months. You can find it, give it a listen, see if it's for you. Moving swiftly forward to look at our main characters, we have 2. The first being Joe, who is the helpful police officer on the train, and the second character is Abby, who we do not meet until later on in the episode. But starting with Joe, he just seems like your regular Joe, Pretty ordinary, except for the fact that he then goes after the bag snatcher. And I think people like that, I'm sure they're good Samaritans, but there's also a little bit of an adrenaline seeker in them, Now, even though at the beginning of the pilot episode, we think Joe is just a regular, everyday geezer, By the middle, we are kind of suspicious of him because he doesn't want to give his name. In fact, I think there are 3 opportunities for him to give his name because somebody says, "What's your name?" And he's like, "Yeah, no, would rather not." And we're like, that's weird for me. I don't like giving my name out, but even I thought that was suspicious. And of course, we were correct in our assumption because we then learn in the pilot episode that he is wanted by Interpol Red, whatever that means, and that he disappeared whilst released on investigation last year. It's very vague. They don't go into any other details except for that. So that's where we are with Joe by the middle of the episode. And by the end of the episode, we are curious about who the fudge he is. What's with the whole Interpol Red thing? He literally runs from the police. He's supposed to be police. What has he done? How did he break out? Why are you so calm, cool and collected? Why are you trying to get to London? We have loads of questions about him by the end of the episode. One question that I do have about him during the episode is, why is he so special? Why is he the one that can help stop whatever is going on? He doesn't seem to be better than anybody else around him, except for the fact that he's possibly ex-police. And when he saw the device in the control room, which wasn't necessarily a bomb, but was some sort of Wi-Fi connected something that allows an external person to take control of the train, he did know who to call. And so, yeah, I mean, that means that he paid attention one time during Police Academy, but yeah, I'm wondering why he's so special. Overall, though, Joe as a character is smart. He quickly understands that whatever went down was pre-planned. He can now see, in hindsight, where everything is 2020, that the whole bag snatching thing was clearly some sort of diversion. And we know, as well as being smart, that Joe is savvy because he is able to evade capture when it's discovered who he is and the police storm the train. I think finally to say about Joe is that he's supposed to be funny. They give him like one-liners, but like almost like old dad joke one-liners. They're just not very funny, to be honest. They just fall a bit blah. So from the pilot episode, I'm not against Joe, but I don't love Joe either. I'm just waiting for him to do something to make us really engage with him as a character and sympathize with him or root for him or root against him. Right, moving on to character 2, whose name is Abby, and Abby works at the National Cybersecurity Centre and she is the acting technical director. Now, when we first meet Abby, she is at the airport, Gatwick Airport specifically, and she is on her way to Marrakesh when she gets a call about a possible issue, which is something to do with an antivirus software company having a virus. Now, instead of going on her jolly holiday, she heads back to the office. We don't know too much about Abby, although obviously she's a workaholic. I mean, she decided to go back to the office around midnight instead of just hopping on a plane to Marrakesh. Fair enough, the plane was delayed, but I would rather be chilling at the airport if my plane is delayed rather than going back to the office. But that's just me. So Abby, yes, she's a workaholic, and I would say that she's a bit of a worrywart, and also kind of like Joe, maybe one of those people who think that they're Batman. Because why can't your team handle it? You didn't leave the National Cybersecurity Centre unmanned. You have a team who are there to cover you on holiday. Why couldn't they just cover you on holiday? Why have you got to come back? It's not very good delegation as a manager. Just saying. Now, Abby is also the kind of person who will, I think, do the wrong thing for the right reason, which we see when she calls in someone who used to work for the company, somebody called Pev, despite being advised and told not to do it. Now, Joe and Abby do connect over the phone, and when we do see them talking, they do act like two old friends, which is nice and does add a relative calm to the turbulent situation of somebody hacking into a train. So, yeah. I can only really comment on Joe and Abby because even though there are a whole host of other people on the train who will eventually, we believe, be relevant to the story, we don't know much about them in the pilot episode, although we are given hints about them and their lives as we watch them on the periphery for the entirety of the pilot episode. Looking at all those extra passengers across the board, we are wondering, what email do they need to send? What phone call are they waiting for? Why are they getting so drunk? Why do they need to go to London? Why is the transport minister on that train? The pilot is all about setup, and so we get a lot of setup with those periphery characters as well as with Joe and with Abby and what's going on with the trains. If you want answers to any of those questions, well, you'll first have to decide if the pilot as a whole can convince you to keep watching the series. And now it is time for a quick interlude to see what TV and film is looking like beyond the pilot principle. And as per usual, we start with books, and I'm still reading Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. I'm still a little bit confused about what is going on, who Piranesi is, where, what world they are in. Not quite sure. However, I'm still not even 100 pages in, so my confusion makes complete sense. And I really want to dedicate some time very soon to just blitzing through the book. In terms of film, I watched Rebel Ridge on Netflix, which stars Aaron Pierre and Anna Sophia Robb, which is funny because I happened to watch her film debut 2 weeks ago, a movie called Because of Winn-Dixie, and it's not one that I would recommend. Now, Rebel Ridge was a good, solid action film. It's just intense. I was anxious the entire time I was watching the film. I was stressed, and in a good way, because these days I find that whenever I pick up an action film to watch, it's just not giving me the level of action I require. So even though Rebel Ridge wasn't necessarily full-on action-packed, the action when it was there was good, and everything else around it felt realistic. And oh gosh, just even thinking about it is stressing me out. And so the main role is played by Aaron Pierre. However, it was actually supposed to be played by John Boyega. And you know what? John Boyega could never. He could literally never. Aaron Pierre was made for the role of Richmond. Terry. Old ex-Marine Terry. Yeah, absolutely great movie. So if you haven't watched it and you like action and you like being a little bit stressed, watch Rebel Ridge and yeah, let me know what you think if you do. Finally, over in TV land, I haven't finished, but I've nearly finished. I really hoped I'd finished before I recorded this, but I have an episode and a half left of The Perfect Couple on Netflix. Or is it The Perfect Family? I think it's The Perfect Couple. Yeah. So far so good. I, as we know, like a mystery. I do have my suspicions on who done it, and right now, I'm kind of leaning towards the maid. Yeah, I'm just going to go out and say it. I think the maid did it. Could be wrong. Or it was an accident. Or her mum did it. I don't know. We'll see. Well, I won't tell you because I don't want to spoil it for you. But those are my suspicions thus far. I believe the highly anticipated Agatha All Along starts soon, which is good. And I will be watching it. But I think I'm a bit jaded with the whole MCU stuff, which is why I will not be doing a pilot review on Agatha All Along. But yeah, I'll be watching. All right, it's a short and sweet one this week, so let's get back into scrutinising the pilot for Nightsleeper. I'm going to change things up a bit this week and look at the end of episode Hook and the possible serial arc before we get into the good and the bad for the pilot episode. So, beginning with the end of episode Hook, after a brief stop at the next station after Glasgow, after the whole hubbub with somebody's trying to hack into the train, but they haven't been able to, but we need to get everybody off the train as soon as possible. Malarkey. The majority of the passengers do in fact get off the train, as does the driver. And when the driver speaks to the conductor / train manager, the train manager was like, dude, did you not think it was weird that nobody could communicate with you? And the train driver's like, what are you talking about, bro? I've been communicating with someone this whole time. Oh, and then all of a sudden the train, without a driver, takes off with our main cast of characters on board, including, of course, Joe. It is 12:40 a.m. and Abby, who has made it off the Gatwick Express and is in London, Victoria, looks up at the glitching departure board, which reads in creepy red letters, "My name is the driver. Tonight I am in control." Joe then calls Abby back and finally introduces himself by name and says to her, I'm going to help you, but you have to help me. She is naturally like, why would I trust you? And then there's like a 7-month pregnant pause, and I was ready to go. I was pumped because I thought Joe was going to say, because I'm the driver. But he doesn't. He says, what else you got? Which for me was an underwhelming and grammatically incorrect end to the episode. Call me callous, but what did make me happy was that a kid gets trapped on the train and he is bawling his eyes out that he can't get to his mum, who isn't on the train because she got off when everybody said to get off. Now, I know this doesn't sound funny. I know this doesn't sound funny to some, but actions have consequence, kids. This little kid hid away to play video games and his mum was frantic with worry the entire episode. She was gallivanting up and down the train looking for him. So you know what? Like I say, actions have consequences. Eat your vegetables, don't vape, and don't hide in the luggage compartment if you can't do the time. Now, in terms of what I feel like the serial arc is going to look like, / series predictions and general foods for thoughts, will Abby make her flight to Marrakesh? It has been delayed. So, she could possibly still make the flight depending on how the rest of her evening goes. My next general food for thought would be, how much of a liability will that child be down the line? I know I was just like cackling over, getting her just desserts, but yeah, having a child on board does add a different energy to things. I'm now more worried than I was before. I feel like that child will either do something dangerous or be in a dangerous predicament. I feel like if a hostage situation comes about, the child will be the first one grabbed. So yes, I'm already completely anxious about that. In terms of the serial arc, of course, there's a driverless train hurtling towards London from Glasgow. Will the train be stopped in time? How are the passengers on board going to stop the train? And how is Abby and her National Cyber Security Centre people going to stop the train from their end? But it's not just the Glasgow Sleeper train. You see, the antivirus software company that has a virus that I mentioned earlier in the episode, one of their clients is in fact UK Network Rail. So we are suspicious of 2 people predominantly, I would say. The Transport Minister, who is on board the Glasgow Sleeper train to London, and an elderly gentleman on the train, one of those cast of characters I mentioned. And it is very subtly mentioned that this elderly gentleman used to drive the train from Glasgow to London back in the didgeridoo-ding-dong day. So I wonder if any of these 2 people will have something to do with the wider issue, because it's not just their train that's been affected, it's all bloody trains. Thus far from the pilot episode, we are looking at a very standard serial arc. However, that is not necessarily a bad thing, as we have loads of questions about how these characters are going to become widely involved in the larger plots going forward. So there are possibly enough elements to maintain the 6 episodes, or technically the 5 remaining episodes, should you continue. A few things that I really enjoyed about the pilot episode. The first thing is that when we learned that one of the clients of the anti-software company that now has a virus is the UK rail network, we are immediately anxious for Abby, as she does in fact spend the majority of the episode on a train, and we have no idea where the cyber attack will strike next. So far, it is located to the sleeper train from Glasgow to London, but we only know this because Joe happened to get through and call Abby. However, it's the UK rail network, which means the attack isn't localized to just one train. So we are just basically on edge throughout the entire episode. And I love that because it's a quiet on edge. Nothing's really been said, nothing's really happened, but we're waiting for something explosive to happen next. Another thing I really liked about episode 1 is that it handles chaos really well, and chaos really bookends the episodes because we have the theft at the beginning and all the passengers being pushed around and running up and down as they're trying to find the bag snatcher, and then at the end, even though most of the passengers are off the train, there is a lot going on. We've got Joe hiding from the police, the train staff trying to get people off the train ASAP, including people who really don't want to get off the train, a person with access needs who is stuck on the train and trying to get off, a drunk, rude man, a missing kid, his frantic mother, the anxious train manager, and of course, the cyber attack. It's pretty much exhausting to watch, but it does its job in providing a necessary distraction and really building up to this explosive moment, which at the end of the episode is, of course, the train going off on its own without a driver. On the flippity flip side, in terms of what I didn't so much like about the pilot episode, it's a little bit static. I understand that they are on a train. However, a large portion of the episode takes place in the control room, and it involves Joe, the train manager, and the dude whose satellite phone Joe is using because all cell service is down in the train, all standing in the control room for like 20 minutes because Joe is on the phone with Abby. And even though we flip from Joe and the sleeper train to Abby, who is on the Gatwick Express train, and then we also go to Abby's workplace, it just still feels quite static, you know. And I think especially as we do have such a vibrant and dynamic start, we're running up and down Glasgow station trying to catch the bag snatchers. And that was the main downside for me for the pilot episode. But the question is, of course, will you be continuing with Nightsleeper? Here are some reasons why it might be for you. If you like an untraditional British mystery drama, specifically to do with the real-time element and being trapped on a train, kind of like, gosh, what's the name of that Agatha Christie one? Murder on the Orient Express. Then this might be for you. If the idea of a ticking clock brings you nothing but thrills, then again, you might want to check out Nightsleeper. And finally, sure, the real-time element to the program doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles, but it's really cool. When Abby gets off the Gatwick Express, we see at Victoria Station that it is 12:40 a.m. That is exactly 58 minutes since we see the time in Glasgow when the episode started at 11:42 a.m. I mean, that's pretty damn cool. Come on. But of course, you might not find it cool, and here are a few reasons why Nightsleeper in general won't be for you. If you hate locked room mystery, skip it. If you want a traditional police drama, then Nightsleeper might not be for you because soz, so far, no murder to be solved. And finally, if you have had it up to here, and I'm pointing somewhere above my 5'4.5" self, with AI and cyber and gloom and doom over technological programs and differences, etc., then you might want to avoid Nightsleeper, because even I let out a disappointed oh when the departure board started with their megalomaniac propaganda. All that is really left for me to do is to give Nightsleeper a pilot score, and I will be giving it a 4 out of 5 because it does excel in story and intrigue, but falls short in pacing in a few areas. Overall, though, it's a solid introduction. I think it's a really bloody good introduction, especially as it ticks all the right boxes in terms of meeting the characters and understanding the direction of the series and the possible dangers that lie ahead, and giving us a whole litany of people to be suspicious of. Based on the reasons above and, personal taste, I will in fact be giving the series a chance, as I feel like it does exactly what it says on the tin, and I have a sneaking suspicion that there will be some crazy twists and turns as the clock ticks down and gets those passengers closer and closer to London. Thanks for joining me this week. Follow the Pilot Principle if you are not already following the Pilot Principle, and let me know if you think I am making a big mistake, huge, on my decision to continue Nightsleeper. And you can do this over on Instagram and Twitter at Pilot Principle. Otherwise, I will catch you on the next episode. Aww.